Hey friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. Hope you're doing well. So as you may be aware, I paid $1,650 to pick up the new PdMs. Yes, the new Lizic Straight fragrances, $550 each. And today we're talking about this one. Carios, I will place you upon Craig the desk. Yeah, that was... Now I've already done a review on Valero over here, and I'm going to do one shortly on Aragon, but today, this little guy right here is in the crosshairs. And we have to determine, is this one worth 550 bucks? How does it smell? What does it smell similar to? And is it better or worse than Valero, which I have already talked to you guys about? By the way, if you haven't seen that video, check that one out. Also, if you are on TikTok, throw me a follow at Gents, because I talk about a lot of things on there that I don't always cover on the channel here. Now, as I said, $550 US is the cost for this little beauty right here, but my order did come with complimentary next day shipping, so shout out PdM for that. Let's begin, as we always do, by taking a gander at this presentation, and then we will dig into the fragrance itself. So the box style is updated, changed, elevated for this new line. You can see it as a slip cover, and on the front of that slip cover, you have the name of the fragrance, the size, and concentration. It is, of course, an extrait de parfum, and it also has this little metallic plaque as well, which is different for each one of the fragrances in this collection. On the back, you have a little information. On the bottom, you have a batch code and barcode along with the ingredients. Let's go ahead and slide off the slip cover and reveal the box within. Box is decently nice, definitely nicer than the other PdM fragrances, to be fair. Probably if you were ranking this box against some of the other big niche brands out there, it would fall somewhere in the middle. Because I'm thinking, you know, Xerjoff probably above, right? Fragrance du Bois above. Amouage probably a little bit above, but then some other houses below. So yeah, somewhere in the middle. It opens up, and on the inside, you have a cutout for your box. They will put some paper on the inside of the box to keep the bottle from moving around in transit. So you can keep that or throw it out, I guess. It's just tissue paper. And then you have a little write-up on the inside of the box itself. And here we have the bottle, a completely new design for this new line of fragrances. Also a little bit smaller than the other PdMs. This one is 100 milliliters in size instead of the 125 that most of the other men's fragrances are. Or at least if you're getting the larger size bottle, because they do of course have 75 mils, so it's just right there in between. You have a little horse cutout on the back of the bottle, which some people think looks really cool, other people don't like at all. I think it looks pretty nice. You have the name of the fragrance on the front. This one is colored, kind of a rose coloration. The cap is also different from the normal bottles, and each cap in this new line is different from the other. It has like almost a warped design to it, and a little reminiscent of like the spikes on Valentino's bottles. You have PdM, of course, on top of the cap, sticker with batch code on the bottom of the bottle, and the cap does click into place and is heavy as always. Let's go ahead and share a couple sprays. Here we go. Atomizer is good. All right, time to dig in. Is it worth 550 bucks? Carios leads with saffron off the top. It's plush, golden, and unmistakably styled, a little bit at least, after Oud for Greatness, and you can tell as soon as you spray it on. Now, it's not a one-to-one copy, so I'm not saying that. This is not a clone or whatever of Oud for Greatness, but the way that the saffron comes across when you smell this is almost unmistakable. The key difference is going to be that Carios is much fresher off the top than Oud for Greatness, and it doesn't have the oud, which is kind of a big part of Oud for Greatness. So you don't get that same punch to the nose that Oud for Greatness has. Instead, this one is fresher, a little bit airier. It has a nice touch of sweetness there off the top, mandarin orange poking through, and that mandarin kind of flitting around in the background when you first spray this one on keeps things lifted. It keeps it, like I said, fresher, much easier to wear. But when you really just boil it down and strip all of that away, yeah, it still smells inspired by Oud for Greatness. Basically, it's like, wow, you know, this is kind of a popular scent profile. What if we made it fresher and easier to wear? And everything else comes after that. So if you just boil it down very simply, that's kind of how it opens. So you could call it whatever you want. Oud for Greatness Light, the freshest, easiest to wear fragrance in the Oud for Greatness style or family, but that's kind of the vibe when you first spray it on, which presents kind of an issue, but we'll get to that later. There's a very slight herbal green tinge as well as it starts to dry down. Probably the thyme note that's in here. Even though officially it is called red thyme, it does have a little herbal touch to it, which makes you think slight green. So this one is kind of walking through that sweet saffron, amber woody style of fragrance, but making it more approachable and more versatile. And we'll go ahead and move you down here for a sec. Through the mid, it moves into more of a spicy direction. So you get more of this warm spiciness that starts to come out, starts to become more prominent in the fragrance. You still have that saffron in there, but now it's bolstered up by tonka and drier woody notes, that tonka giving a slight vanilla sort of sweetness as it heads through the mid and into the dry down. But a word of warning. Heed this warning. It doesn't come from me, it comes from my wife. She has smelled this one a few times now. I've been wearing it since I got it in, and she's not a big fan up close, and I'll tell you why. To her, she says it reminds her of the smell of pickles. Now, to me, it does not, but be aware of that because there are some people that are more keen on picking that up, and there are other fragrances out there, probably Santal 33, the most well-known, where people will smell it and they'll be like, oh, reminds me of pickles, and then it's immediately ruined. That is the type of association for somebody that can kill the fragrance instantaneously. It's the same thing as smelling a scent that has cumin in it, and then instead of getting like a warm, sexy spiciness with a little punch, you know, a little tang to it, they go, ah, it smells like sweat. It smells like body odor. Immediately, it's done. So again, I don't get that. My wife does, and she has brought it up every single time, so be aware. And I suppose that's a possibility sometimes with saffron-forward fragrances, depending on how the saffron is used, that some people can kind of pick it up that way. And as it dries down, it does have a nice little aromatic tilt, which helps set it apart slightly more from Oud for Greatness as it dries. And there's also a really pleasant, faint, creamy vanilla undertone from that tonka that keeps slowly, subtly building in the background as the fragrance dries down on your skin. And that tonka further into the dry down melds together really well with kind of a combination of woody notes that just come across as dry woodiness, a dry modern woody vibe. All the notes that came before kind of swirling together in the dry down saffron, bits and remnants of the aromatic notes, that tonka, the woods, and also hints of additional spice as well. So it kind of all just comes together right there in the dry down. In the air, it diffuses nicely, gives off this hint of like warmth, sweet warmth almost, along with dry spices and woods. Just smells really nice in the air. Decently refined and classy. And as you would expect from a Parfums Marley fragrance that's sending straight to Parfum, it lasts forever and it projects really well. And compared to Valero, the fresher fragrance, this one does outperform that one off my skin, projects better, lasts longer. Gonna be more of a fall, wintertime fragrance, also could use it during spring, daytime, or evening. So good versatility overall, especially for a fragrance like this. And comparing this one to Valero, this definitely smells more niche than that one does. This one is definitely walking more in the designer aisle. This one is more 1 foot in the designer aisle, 1 foot in the niche aisle, which is kind of what PdM is known for the most part. So that's not a surprise. So I've tried to break down this fragrance as neutrally as I can to let you know how it comes across. But what do I actually think about it? Well, first off, $550. It is grossly overpriced. It is crazily expensive. It's up there with the higher tier, the top tier of your normal niche brand's pricing. Once you get past like this price, you're basically going to artisanal releases, you're going to specific auditeurs, you're going to like the creme de la creme, the most expensive stuff that you can get. You're starting to get up there, right? So this has to compete with essentially all of the very expensive niche fragrances and also compete with all of the mid-range niche fragrances. And then, you know, also needs to compete with the stuff that's more affordable. It has to crush all of that for it to make sense, and it doesn't. I do think the presentation is nicer, it's elevated. Some people don't dig this, but I think it looks nice. That being said, it is smaller than the other PdM, so it does have that going for it, or against it, I should say. And one of the biggest issues this has is this, and this. Oud for Greatness exists, and it's really popular. So when you smell this, you know immediately, oh, Oud for Greatness. And when you smell this, you go, oh, they're inspired by Oud for Greatness, which they obviously have already been because they made this Halton, which smells quite similar to Oud for Greatness. Now, this is taking a different path in the sense that this is trying to be more wearable. It's trying to like take this DNA and go, well, I think it might sell better if it were easier to pull off. And that's what they're trying to do, at least to me, that's what it comes across like. So they're basically like, here's the original, here's the more masculine version that's still leaning more dark and heavy for fall and winter. Here's the easier to wear version that you can wear out around town and not have to think about. So when you can draw a line from this to this to this and the price goes whoop, you just kind of go, yeah, what? Am I the moron here? The answer is yes, by the way. Now, if this didn't exist and this didn't exist, then maybe you would go into this and be like, oh, that's kind of a cool take on a saffron forward fragrance, like good depth, refined, easy to wear, not too sweet, and a nice little freshness to it. But when you can clearly draw the line from here to here to here and follow along with the like, what I perceive to be the idea behind it, it loses a little steam. It's well blended, it's wearable, it's not pushing any boundaries, it's not trying to do anything new. It's just charging you a really high price for a remix of something that already exists and has existed. And so that makes it really hard to get excited for it because essentially you're getting hit for 550 bucks for a brand to give you a new shiny bottle and I guess a higher concentration, but it's not like anybody wore Parfums Marley before and they were like, oh, this stuff sucks, it lasts 30 minutes, right? So that's not really an issue with the brand that needed fixing. To my own taste, this one is more interesting than Valero. Like side by side, I think that this one has a little more going on, but side by side, Valero is the easier fragrance to wear. For more people, they'll probably get compliments wearing Valero if that's important to you. And just bumping this up against, the fragrances that PdM has that are, competitors for this one, we'll say. Stuff like Leighton or Herod, Carlisle, stuff like that. This is not on par with those. If this were a normal release from PdM, people would still call out the similarity to Oud for Greatness and by proxy Halton and be like, was it really necessary? But to make this part of your, top of the line, most expensive, the best stuff out there, and then it's still able to be, pointed to those other fragrances, and you get what I'm saying. I'm like getting lost here, but it would already catch flack, but now it's just amplified. So to my own taste, is it worth $550? No, it isn't. I wouldn't suggest you to buy it at full retail. Wait for it to hit discounters, assuming that it eventually does hit discounters for a legitimate discount. Try to sample it first if you can. But yeah, if you want to really just dumb it down, super simple. This is a fresher take on the Oud for Greatness styling, especially off the top, with a nice semi-sweet, dry, woody dry down with warm spices kind of throughout. This over here, Valero, is more of a fragrance that's going to compete with stuff like YSL's Myself to an extent, with a little bit of a blend of blue fragrance DNA in there, specifically woodiness as it dries down. Both perform, both last, both are competently done, both are redundant. So there we go, 2 down, 1 to go. Aragon up next. So hopefully this one is the one. If you've tried these ones, let me know which one that you think is the best of the 3. And who knows, maybe in the future, these hit 200, 225, 250, something like that at discounters. And at that point, they're more manageable and it makes more sense. But for now, don't do it. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys.